Margaret Atwood herself weighs in on the abortion controversy that has rocked our nation for the past week, so we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. Biden is set to deliver remarks on the inflation that's coming here, and since the buck stops with Biden, that means it's the perfect time to go and blame Republicans for what's going on in the country. So we'll talk just a bit about what's happening with that. A new COVID wave could be coming, and it may already be hitting places like New York City. So we'll talk about what's happening with that and where this goes. And Wordle had to change an answer to avoid having a fraught word that would trigger people. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We have got another packed Tuesday morning show. I actually did cut some stuff back out of this just because there was a lot of review in here, but it's jam-packed once again. And I think the crux of this is going to be going over what Biden has to say about inflation, because he can try to hide behind the abortion debate. He can try to hide behind student loan crisis. He can try to hide behind the new coronavirus wave, but like it or not, especially once we see the gas report coming back up here, this is not looking good for Biden coming into this. And no matter how many social issues he does try to throw at you, and they are going to try to throw social issues at you coming into this election, it's the economy, stupid. And that's one thing you have to remember. No matter how many abortions they try to go and outlaw, how many states try to go and turn themselves blue by double and triple and super illegalifying abortion and everything else, it all comes down to the fact that nobody can afford to live again, and we are looking at the exact same things that we were looking at in 2008. And I will explain why when we talk about gas too. Like, this has all the markers of what happened in 08, 09, 2010. Already in a much shorter order, by the way, than what we saw all the way back then. So let's get into it. Let's get started. I'm actually going to skip Turns of Pages production stuff this morning just because we've got so much to get into. We are going to start with the finance for the morning here, looking at the Dow. The Dow is in trouble now because of the kickover, because I overslept again today. We didn't get to see where it started from here, but the Dow dumped another 600 points throughout the day yesterday. And it actually, throughout the day, hit a new record low, coming down to the 52-week low now. It's at 32,121.98. That is down 225 points from the previous 52-week low. So we've got a new low, and right now it's not showing any signs of stopping. So for those of you with 401k, for those of you with Roth IRA or anything else that's tied up into the Dow, again, I'm not telling you to go sell your stock. I've had that theory before, but I can't give you official financial advice. Do keep that in mind, but it might be time to go and start talking with your retirement advisor and say, hey, this is starting to happen, and it's starting to get to a point where we can ignore it. What do we do? Because that person can give you official financial advice. I cannot. But looking at it right now, we're back down to 32,245.70 at the close, which is right around the previous 52-week low, with more signs that it's going to drop off once again. Looking in at your Bitcoin, the Bitcoin actually came back a little bit from yesterday's abysmal fall. Bitcoin is now at 31,757 US dollars. Over the past 5 days, that is down 4,782 US dollars. But from yesterday, it's actually clawing its way back up ever so slightly. We're not there yet, but it's clawing its way back up ever so slightly. So we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. For the most part, I would call it a steady balance is what we're having with this, but still a clawback, so we'll see what happens with that. Looking in at gas, and that is where we're going to start getting into some bad news. Your low price leader in the Madison area is at $3.84. $3.84 per gallon. That is the low price. And that's all the way up in Portage. Otherwise, once you get into Madison proper, the Costco in Sun Prairie is $3.88. The Cenex in Monona is $3.89. The BP in Lodi has got to $3.94. The Citgo in Waunakee has also got to $3.94. $3.95 at the Citgo in Portage. $3.95 at the Race in Sun Prairie. Now, they don't have anything that actually says Madison on it, but, you know, Sun Prairie, DeForest, those are all cities that touch Madison to the point that you're still in Madison proper at that way, but in DeForest at the Fleet Farm is at $3.99. But something, and I talked about this in the opening, when you look at this, some of the things that we saw right from the beginning, when we started to see the economy crash and tank in 2009, 2010, is the cash option. We see that from the BP up in Portage and the Citgo over in Waunakee. These are the cash prices, and Gas Buddy's not going to show this because they're showing the lowest prices possible that you can get, but the Citgo is probably also sitting at $3.99 right now for if you go and take your credit card up there, and that BP is probably sitting at $3.89. Again, if you take your credit card in there. There are a couple options that go with that. They can give a little bit of a discount because there is the processing fee that gets added onto the credit card that most of your places will sit down and eat based on what they're getting, but this gives you an incentive to go in there. Plus, if you're going in and paying cash, you're going indoors to go pay for the fuel, which means as well you're coming off and you're indoors. You see the brownies on the rack sitting there, and like, hey, cool, I'd love some brownies. Hey, you know what? I'm inside already. Maybe let's go get some chips. Hey, is that a Monster Energy drink over there? So they're starting to find ways to get you to spend a little bit of money as you go, but also trying to incentivize you to get to their station instead of going to their competitors with a slightly lower price off of that. And when you're starting to entice people with a small remittance on your gas price, that's when you start to know that it's starting to hit. So we'll continue to watch that and see where that goes. And given the fact that it is $3.99 at the Fleet Farm in DeForest, means that it's probably $4.15 in Janesville, which means that, well, yep, we're filling up today. That's happening. No matter how much it costs, we're filling up today. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. Dow Futures, what to do after Monday's stock market plunge. Biden inflation speech next. From Scott Latonin, Dow Futures moved higher Monday after a stock market plunge as the major stock indices sold off with heavy losses to hit new correction lows. Up next, President Biden's speech on inflation is scheduled for Tuesday. Car Gurus and Microchip were key earnings movers after the close. Car Gurus dived 13% on Tuesday, and Microchip stock rallied around 3% in early trade. Elsewhere, EV leader Li Auto, Peloton, Planet Fitness, and TransDigm are among the companies reporting Tuesday morning. On the futures, before Tuesday's open, Dow Futures rose 0.7% versus fair value, and the S&P moved up 0.75%. The Nasdaq gained 1.2% on the futures versus fair value. And remember, overnight action in Dow Futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. The 10-year yield traded as high as 3.13% on Monday before closing at around 3.08%. The 10-year yield is at its highest level since November of 2018. Meanwhile, U.S. oil prices slid nearly 7%, with Texas Intermediate crude trading just above $102 a barrel. President Biden will give a speech Tuesday highlighting his attempts to fight surging inflation on Wednesday. April's Consumer Price Index will be released. Per Econo Day, consumer prices are expected to rise 0.2% on the month, in April versus March's 1.2% increase, which was the largest monthly advance in 42 years. I am willing to bet, given my last trip to the grocery store, that it's going to be higher than that. I don't think we're going to hit 1.2, but I would say 0.5% is what I've seen based on what I see on the ground. According to Bloomberg, the president plans to detail his legislative efforts ahead of November's midterm elections. Meanwhile, President Biden's approval rating is back near February's low point. So that's what we see off of that. Let's grab one from CNN. Talking about yesterday's stock market. Dow tumbles again as tech wreck continues. S&P hits 52-week low. From Nicole Goodkind. U.S. stocks fell sharply Monday, pushing the S&P below 4,000 for the first time in over a year as traders anticipate a new load of bad news on inflation and earnings. The Dow fell about 654 points, nearly 2%, the S&P dropped 3.2%, and the Nasdaq lost about 4.3%. At one point, the 10-year note hit 3.19%, its highest yield since 2018. The moves follow an incredibly volatile week on Wall Street and marks the fifth straight week of losses for all three major U.S. stock indices. The Ukraine war, the global energy shock, the risk the Fed tries to fight the supply-driven inflation have sparked the reassessment of macro scenarios among market participants, wrote BlackRock analysts in a Monday morning note. We also see little chance of perfect economic scenario of low inflation and growth humming along. Fed Chair Powell told investors late Wednesday that future rate hikes larger than half percentage point are not something the Fed is actively considering, leading to a bullish surge in markets. The major indices grew around 3%, and the S&P and Dow had their best days in nearly 2 years. By Thursday, investors decided they weren't so keen on the changes, worried about the increasing chances the Fed plunges the economy into a recession. Yeah, the Fed, not necessarily executive branch policy, or local state policy, or lockdown policy, because that's possibly coming too. The Dow dropped 1,120 points, or 3.3%. The S&P fell 3.7%, and the Nasdaq tumbled 5.2%, marking its worst day since 2020. I've been in the markets for 25 years, and I've never seen anything like this, said Daniel DiMartino Booth, CEO and chief strategist for Quill Intelligence, a Wall Street and Federal Reserve research firm. It's violent, not just volatile. The forward-thinking tech sector is particularly vulnerable to higher rates. Investors expect tech companies to post electric growth, but inflation and higher interest payments will take a big bite out of those profits. Amazon fell 5.2%, and Meta lost about 3.7%. Alphabet dropped 2.8%. Apple and Netflix were both down about 3%. Data analytics company Palantir, meanwhile, fell more than 21% after reporting mixed quarterly earnings. Electric vehicle maker Rivian dropped by nearly 21% as insider lockup period for selling stock expires. Ford owns a $102 million stake in the company and has lost money on this deal. Investors are waiting for a key inflation gauge, the Consumer Price Index later this week said. If you want to be a cup half full sort of person, the lack of new bad news is something to hold on to, and Wednesday should see U.S. core and headline CPI inflation fall back, wrote Societe Generale strategist Kit Jacques in a note on Monday. A drop in inflation could calm markets sufficiently and reverse the sell-off by the weekend, he said. Still, as earnings season draws to its conclusion, forecasts for the next quarter remain weak. Mentions of weak demand in earnings reports are now at their higher levels since the second quarter of 2020, according to research by Bank of America analysts. Our guidance ratio, earnings revision ratio, and corporate sentiment reading all plummeted to the lowest since the second quarter of 2020, they wrote, adding to recession concerns. Dude, we are in a recession right now. It is not concerns anymore. We are there. The economy shrank 1.4%. The GDP dropped 1.4% last quarter. It is not showing any sign of picking back up. Meanwhile, your fuel prices are skyrocketing to record levels. Non-inflation adjusted, of course. While people are stuck and locked in with vehicle loans that they made for bigger, and yes, unfortunately, more gas-guzzling vehicles, under a time when it was cheap to put gas in them. We are in a recession. It is here. I hate to tell you this. I hate to bust the bubble. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it is here, and we will see what happens with it, of course. But the Biden administration could blame Republicans all day long and pull this back around, but I don't anticipate it at this point. And I saw this. Again, I've lived through this. I've seen where this goes, and we will continue to watch this. We will continue to observe. Let's get into the big news of the day. We are going to start with a Democrat strategist who has decided that the most important thing is to imprison their political enemies. This is Dash Dabrowski, which I do want to point out the fact that this is Political Science 23, but this guy did not have a Twitter before we get into this until last month. This dude did not have a Twitter account, and he suddenly blue-checked. Oh, did they take away his blue check now? He was blue-checked as of last night. They keep trying to pump him up. He's one of those where they try to put him onto those, you may like this. But, yeah, they've taken his blue check mark away, possibly because the DNC is trying to distance themselves from this after this point. But let's listen. And again, I apologize, because this is more of one of those things of, I had to hear it, so you have to hear it. Let's have a listen.
I have a question for the Department of Justice. When Amy Coney Barrett said she'd uphold Roe v. Wade in her confirmation hearing, she lied. Lying under oath is perjury, and perjury is a federal crime. Why didn't you take any legal action against her? When Neil Gorsuch said he'd uphold Roe v. Wade in his confirmation hearing, he lied. Lying under oath is perjury, and perjury is a federal crime. Why didn't you take any legal action against him? When Brett Kavanaugh said he'd uphold Roe v. Wade in his confirmation hearing, he lied. Lying under oath is perjury, and perjury is a federal crime. Why didn't you take any legal action against him? Merrick Garland, your decision not to prosecute is going to cost women in America their reproductive rights. How dare you call yourself the Department of Justice? Do your job. Prosecute the Republican justices. I have a question for the Department of Justice.
So, this guy's angry. How does that make you feel? Do you care that this guy's angry? This guy that just joined Twitter last month? Do you care that he's angry? I think it's kind of funny they took his blue check mark away from him, by the way. That they unverified this guy within the course of a few hours. But first off, and I mean, he has been ripped to shreds in the comments. Did this get ratioed? Let's go have a look. Oh yeah. This guy got full-on ratioed for this. Because he is, of course, incorrect. Now, if you do want to have a good breakdown of what it was that Amy Coney Barrett and Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh all said that he's talking about with this, that delightful fellow over at Don't Walk Run Productions actually did a very good breakdown as to how the sidestep went. And there are people that are on Mr. Dabrowski's side that are pointing this out and saying, oh, well, see, the Republican people, they did the GOP sidestep off of this. They never actually said that they would uphold it. Which they didn't. I mean, what? One of the expectations for a good judge and justice is that when they're going through confirmation hearing, they don't talk about how they would rule on a potential case. And all three of them knew coming in, that they would be hearing cases on abortion, that something would be coming down the pipes. And no, you should not be commenting on how you would rule on an upcoming case without having heard all the facts already, without having heard any of the information about it. You should not prejudge a case. That's, honestly, if they would have come out and said, yes, I plan to overturn Roe versus Wade, or no, I plan to uphold this, I would say that no, they are not qualified for the bench. But somebody like Dash here, The most important thing to him is the fact that he can go screw some blue-haired girl that he doesn't care about and blow it inside of her and never have to worry about a consequence. In fact, being able to go and pressure her to go and have an abortion and call it women's rights. This guy could also use braces, but I'm not really going to come back out here and attack him on appearance when he's got so much actual content to attack off of. From the Daily Wire, pro-life pregnancy centers are under attack, a continuation from what we saw yesterday. Pro-life pregnancy centers across the nation are reporting attacks as abortion supporters react to news at the monumental Supreme Court case Roe v. Wade may be overturned. Let's look at some of those that they're doing. Kaiser, Oregon. Oregon Right to Life announced Monday that its offices in Kaiser had been attacked late Sunday evening, saying in a statement, an individual used incendiary devices, one of which exploded and caught the building on fire. The office was vacant at the time and no one was harmed, the statement said. Fire and police departments responded quickly, minimizing damage to the building. The agencies are actively investigating the incident. The group is shaken up by the attack. Executive Director Lois Anderson said, we are committed to taking proper precautions to protect the safety of our staff as we move forward. And there is some of the damage there. It looks like possibly a window unit air conditioner got popped and burned. Madison, Wisconsin, the one that we looked at yesterday, a pro-life nonprofit was set ablaze in a suspicious fire. A Molotov was reportedly thrown. One wall was burnt, and the message, if abortions aren't safe, then you aren't either, was spray-painted on the side of the building in delightfully neat cursive writing, I might add. It is not immediately clear who set the building on fire. Wisconsin Family Action claims the attack was from an elitist anarchist group that threw 2 Molotovs into the office after breaking windows and then proceeded to light a fire. The arsonist posted graffiti outside the building near the group's offices. The message was, if abortions aren't safe, then you aren't either. Anarchy 1312 took responsibility for the attack, leaving its logo on an outside wall, the organization said. Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes drew ire for a statement in which he said department understands members of the community are feeling deep emotions due to the recent news involving the U.S. Supreme Court. Activists appeared to have vandalized a pro-life center in Frederick, Maryland. Oh, looks like they don't have the caption there. Frederick, Maryland, spray painting the words "not a real clinic" and "forced motherhood, abortion is a right," and "pro-abortion go to Planned Parenthood instead" across the walls, according to photographs obtained by the Daily Wire. On Wednesday, May 4th, the staff arrived at the center to the disturbing scene of lies and propaganda spray-painted on the front of the building. CareNet Executive Director Linda King told the Daily Wire, unfortunately, this is not the first time our center has been vandalized. We were previously vandalized twice in 2014 in the same manner. These acts of vandalism are an attempt to intimidate our staff and volunteers and to mislead our clients. There is the spray paint there. On Monday, after days of silence, the White House condemned the acts of violence or threats or vandalism directed at pro-life centers, specifically referring to the Madison attack. President Biden strongly condemns this attack and political violence of any stripe, the White House said in a statement. The president has made clear throughout his time in public life that Americans have the fundamental right to express themselves under the Constitution, whatever their point of view, but that expression must be peaceful and free of violence, vandalism, or attempts to intimidate. So, yeah, these people, by the way, this is the same kind of person that is condemning the attack on the Capitol as a violent insurrection. The same type of people who will go online and say, oh, you must support the January 6th Selfie Fest, and all those people should be in prison for what they did to the Capitol, are out here doing this. These are the same types of people. I think it was wrong at both ends, honestly. But I really do think that they were being set up in the Capitol Selfie Fest, too. from the Daily Mail. Handmaid's Tale author Margaret Atwood says forcing women to give birth to babies they don't want is slavery, as she claims the Supreme Court's plan to strike down Roe v. Wade. From Stephen M. Lepore for DailyMail.com. Celebrated author Margaret Atwood says enforced childbirth is slavery in response to the leaked draft decision from the Supreme Court that could potentially overturn Roe v. Wade. Atwood, 82, has seen her seminal work, The Handmaid's Tale, and the recent TV series adaptation, become oft-cited by liberals warning of the consequences of conservative policies on social issues. Activists will often dress like characters from the show at protest. In an edited extract from her new book, Burning Questions, published in The Guardian on Sunday, Atwood made the point that anti-abortion laws could force women to choose illegal forms of abortion. Nobody likes abortion, even when safe and legal, she wrote. That's not the impression I'm getting out of this. It's not what any woman would choose for a happy time on a Saturday night, but nobody likes women bleeding to death on the bathroom floor from illegal abortions either. What to do? She then goes on to say that the abortion is a matter of choice and freedom, and that the restrictions placed on the practice would leave half the population enslaved. And they're coming up to a season 4 of this, by the way. Women who cannot make their own decisions about whether or not to have babies are enslaved because the state claims ownership of their bodies and the right to dictate the use to which their bodies must be put, she wrote. She argued that only similar consequences for men would be a reinstallation of mandatory military service, though she points out that they are at least given provisions throughout their service. Atwood was also critical of America's maternal health care system, wondering why Washington might force women to have babies, but not offer complimentary prenatal care, postnatal care, and social programs to help raise the children. If the state is very fond of babies, why not honor the women who have had the most babies, by respecting them and lifting them out of poverty, she asked. She then cast doubt that this would ever happen and argues that the state is going to not only enforce childbirth, but make mothers pay for it. She adds that if life is a gift, that gift must be able to be rejected, or else it's not a gift at all. Enforce childbirth if you wish, but at least call that enforcing by what it is. It's slavery to claim to own and control another's body and to profit by that claim. If and when the draft is made final, the decision removes the federal right to abortion in America, leaving it up to elected officials in each state to decide whether or not women should have access to abortion. 26 states are likely to ban it if Roe is formally overturned, essentially outlawing abortion in more than half the country. 18 states have already had the restrictive abortion laws in place. Well, if 26 states are coming forward and saying that there's a ban, I don't think there's that much will for it in America. First and foremost, that's just regular statistics, but hey, let's not listen to statistics around here. But let's see what the Season 4 trailer looks like here.
I can't rest. My daughter deserves better. We all deserve better. Change never comes easy. This war isn't going to win itself.
All those children. It's June's legacy.
Which changed me, changed you.
She does have strong claws, that one.
It's not safe anywhere. We should all just leave.
These women deserve to be helped. But I can't do this alone.
Blessed be the squad.
She is out there planning who knows what kind of atrocities to visit upon our righteous nation. I never allowed myself to see her for what she clearly is, beyond redemption.
What happens in the next few weeks will determine the future of this country.
We're just getting started. I had another.
So when we look, and especially when we look at something like this particular trailer, one of the things that I note off of this is this may be starting to be where we're getting some of the instances of violence from. I mean, it's fairly clear, and this is just a trailer. I've never seen the series. I don't have Hulu. I'm debating getting it just to see how bad this actually is, but I'm sure that a lot of the pro-choice groups out there are drawing inspiration from the fact, I mean, you saw, and I don't know what the building was either, because again, never seen the series, an actual explosion come out of a building. Elizabeth Moss hold a gun, which is ironic in and of its own self, because they say that you shouldn't be allowed to have guns because you might go try to overthrow the... Well, no, they try to say that you'll go out and kill kids, but, you know, they pretty clearly show that a gun is one of the few ways to go back and overthrow the atrocious government. That's interesting to me. And the Canadian flag. I don't know if people were running off to Canada or whatnot. Again, haven't seen the show, haven't read the book. But it is interesting. And of course, it does seem at this point like the left has only ever read one book, and it's this one. Or seen one TV series. So that's what we see coming off of that. And lastly, one before we head in and talk about Biden's speech. One coming to us from The Blaze, The View co-host Sunny Hostin, says Supreme Court justices who don't vote to uphold Roe v. Wade are hypocrites if they don't want protesters at their personal homes. And it's The Blaze, so we'll get video. Sunny Hostin, co-host of The View, said the Supreme Court justices' right to privacy is no different from a woman's right to have an abortion. Hostin's remarks come on the heels of protests against the Supreme Court draft decision that would overturn Roe v. Wade. Demonstrations have taken place outside the homes of several justices, including John Roberts, Samuel Alito, and more. During Monday's broadcast of the ABC daytime talk show, Hostin argued Supreme Court justices' privacy is no different than a woman's right to abortion. Let's watch.
We're talking about the threat to Roe v. Wade being overturned. Sunny.
Yeah. You know, over the weekend, I was watching a lot of the protests that were happening outside of some of the justices' homes, and my understanding is that Justice Alito has had to go into hiding because of this, draft opinion that was leaked. And while I think it is terrible that a justice would have to go into hiding, I think it is really clear to the justices now that, as Anna mentioned, 64 to 66% of Americans believe that the Supreme Court should uphold Roe v. Wade, right? And so that being said, maybe these protests and maybe this outcry gives Chief Justice Roberts some leverage for a more moderate approach. Because we saw during the hearing that he was looking for a way, a moderate way, to handle this case. And I just think when you have the Supreme Court justices like Clarence Thomas coming out this weekend and saying at the 11th Circuit Judicial Conference that they will not be bullied and that people need to live with outcomes they don't agree with, and other...
Tell that to your wife.
Yeah, and that other...
Tell that to Donald Trump, who refuses to say that he lost.
No, but his wife is...
his wife.
Well,
and then other justices are saying, you have no right to stand up and freely protest, peacefully protest outside of our homes. We have a right to privacy. Well, women have a right to privacy as well.
Yeah. That's
and
what
women
this is
have
all
a right
about.
to privacy with their bodies. And I'm just shocked that that's what we're hearing from men. That's what we're hearing from the justices. That's what we're hearing from, Republicans, that people don't have a right to protest this draft opinion when the Supreme Court has found that you have a right to protest in front of abortion clinics, that there can be no buffer zone.
You said a word that I think is key. You said peacefully protest, and I think that's a key word. Absolutely. We saw this weekend in Madison, Wisconsin, where an anti-abortion clinic was targeted and was bombed. And we cannot condone violence from anybody. The way to overturn this is through public pressure, is through the vote. Everybody should go and check their voter registration right now and make sure that they are duly registered, because the voting laws have changed in many states, and you have to be invested in every election, not just the presidential, but also the people in the Senate, your Congress people, your governor, because they're passing these state laws that are going to make it criminal for you to leave from one state to the other to go seek medical attention.
Or how about
So there's a lot to unpack with this entire thing. First and foremost, Ana Navarro was actually right. One of the first things that you should do is be paying attention to what's happening on your local level. So much of the problem that we're having right now in this country is the fact that both Democrats and Republicans, especially over the last 2 decades, have paid absolutely no mind to their local races. All they care about is who the president is. And a lot of these people that are watching The View, I guarantee you, if you went up and asked them who the representative is, well, I don't know. I saw the D on the card and I checked that. I don't know who this person is. I don't know what their platform is or anything. I just saw that they have a D next to their name. So that is something you should be paying attention to on the local level. I will agree with Ana Navarro off of that, but it's kind of funny too to listen to Sonny Hostin come out there and say that, we should be condoning violence, and it was totally wrong that they firebombed the place in Madison, Wisconsin. Oh, that was totally wrong. Like, give me a fucking break. And yes, there is, as was pointed out in the chat last night, and was pointed out on several other tweets and threads that I followed out, there is the idea that yes, there's the right to privacy, and yes, they're peacefully protesting outside the justices' homes. And there's also the big difference. Well, there's no buffer zone between the Supreme Court found that there's no buffer zone for protesting outside of a Planned Parenthood, which is true. But there is an additional. It's both Maryland Code and then U.S. Code 18 as well, where you are not allowed to intimidate a judge or a justice. That's a federal crime to try to get one outcome or another. So there's a lot of different stuff moving over here, but yeah, I'm pretty positive that Hostin is sitting over here trying to hide a smile when she's saying, "Oh, the ProLife Center in Madison got firebombed. Oops. Oh, that's so wrong. Don't do that, tisk tisk." All right, let's go talk about Biden from CNN. Biden set to deliver remarks on inflation on Tuesday, say officials. From Arlette Sainz and Paul LeBlanc. President Biden will deliver remarks on inflation Tuesday, a White House official said, as his admin looks to further address one of the key economic concerns for voters heading into November's midterm elections. He'll detail his plan to fight inflation and lower costs for working families, and contrast his approach with congressional Republicans' ultra-mega plan to raise taxes on 75 million American families and threaten to sunset programs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, the official said in an email. Hold on. If you're threatening to raise taxes on 75 million Americans, is that telling me that your rhetoric on the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act has been wrong for the entire time you're sitting in office? A CNN poll released last week found that 8 in 10 U.S. adults said the federal government wasn't doing enough to curb inflation, and a majority said the president's policies have hurt the economy. Even within the Democratic Party, just 7 in 10 approve of Biden's on the economy, and helping the middle class, considerably lower than the 86% of Democrats who approve of his performance overall. Biden's expected remarks were first reported by Axios. Inflation rates have been increasing sharply since August of 2021 and have been out of the normal 2% to 4% range for a full year. The Consumer Price Index rose 8.5% for the year ending in March, a rate that hadn't been seen since December of 1981. It is our job to make sure that inflation of the unpleasant high nature doesn't get entrenched into the economy, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said last week, just after he announced a half-point interest rate hike to combat inflation. Still, Americans are struggling with rising costs everywhere, from the grocery store to the gas pump, keeping prices stable as part of the Fed's mandate, but so far inflation has kept creeping higher, leading some to wonder if the central bank is behind the curve with its policy. The GOP is already leveraging inflation to weaken Democrats heading into midterm elections, as it argues that Biden and congressional Democrats aggravated the problem with the injection of pandemic-related stimulus funds into the economy in 2021. Oh, but Donald Trump, evil Donald Trumpler, he did a pandemic rescue plan too. He must be responsible for all the inflation. He did, and I addressed that because I was against that. I said, stop spending the goddamn money. Every one of you guys knows that I was completely against the thought of taking my stimulus check because I knew that it was going to lead to something like we're seeing right now. And not only that, I knew that if Democrats were to take the House coming into 2020, and if they were to manage to get themselves into the presidency, and even if they were to manage to get themselves into the Senate, which that one I actually didn't believe, there was going to be pressure on the ground to keep printing. If the people got one stimulus, they were going to want another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. Just like they do. More printing and more printing. I knew what would start if you started giving a mouse a cookie. Because you saw problems with the economy. All the way back in spring of 2020. And I was against it. I cut my check up, and they're still trying to give it to me. They send me a letter every year at tax time saying, "Oh, we noticed you didn't cash this check here. Call us and we'll send you another one." And I said, "No, I don't want another one." Biden, for his part, has repeatedly acknowledged the reality of rising inflation while still touting the strength of the U.S. economy. So that's what we see off of that. From Axios, Biden targets GOP on inflation as prices skyrocket. Yep, that's our buck stops here president. The buck stops with that one. Don't worry, he's not going to be like his predecessor who blamed everybody else for his problems. Except for the fact that he does. From Hans Nichols, author of Axios Sneak Peek. President Biden is preparing a major speech Tuesday to address inflation and will contrast his plans to lower costs for American families with those offered by congressional Republicans, an administration official told Axios. For a president who once insisted inflation was transitory, Biden is now talking about rising prices at nearly every opportunity. The focus comes as Americans buckle under gas exceeding $6 a gallon in some states, and grocery price increases each visit to the store. So, yesterday, I got a fairly small order of groceries. Just a little bit of stuff because I was running so far behind the 8 ball trying to get yesterday's show prepped, trying to get some laundry done, and trying to get my garden outside so I can free up some space in my kitchen. I had a busy day yesterday. In fact, I also made a large amount of vegetable broth throughout the day yesterday as well. I made it the day before, but I had to get it canned up because it was done cooking yesterday. So I bit the bullet and I went to the local grocery store, which is always a little bit more expensive because it's a smaller chain. I think they only have 2 stores. So it's a smaller chain, a smaller franchise. And there's the convenience factor of having it be in the small town like it is. So I always expect every time I go over there it's going to be more expensive, but for 3 packs of various kinds of meat, price shopping, of course, to get the cheapest kind I could possibly find, vegetables, a thing of cheese dip because I'm back on keto, and 3 cans of Bang was $50. As they're saying, rising prices every time that you go to the grocery store. That would have been a $20 day in 2020. At the White House on Tuesday, Biden will focus on GOP plans like those from Rick Scott, which Democrats say will raise taxes on some 75 million Americans and could sunset entitlement programs like Medicare or Medicaid. Despite an economy that created 428,000 new jobs last month, officials know inflation is diluting Americans' purchasing power and can crush Democrats at the polls in the midterm elections. Biden admin officials have been debating whether to lower some of former President Trump's tariffs against China, because we'll be dependent on China. As one step towards slowing inflation, Axios has reported. Throughout April, Biden has hit rising prices in a speech nearly every week. He did so again last week during a visit to Ohio, a key Rust Belt electoral state. The BLS will release April's Consumer Price Index at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow. It's become one of the most eagerly awaited statistics in Washington. Economists estimate the monthly headline rate will come in at 0.2%, meaning annual inflation will be 8.1%, according to FactSet. That would mark a decline from March's 8.5% annual rate, which was the highest annual reading since 1981. A signal inflation may be receding. No, if you want to see inflation receding, you have to see that number start getting negative, I'm telling you. Because this is an increase from month over month and year over year. Last week, the Federal Reserve enacted its steepest interest rate increase in more than 20 years as it steps to help bring inflation down. At the end of 2021, with annual CPI at 6.8%, Biden claimed inflation was at its peak. Then the war in Ukraine helped drive up energy prices that had been already driven up by Biden administration failures. But don't worry, guys, the buck stops here. From the Daily Wire, reversal of reality. CNN fact-checker isn't buying Biden's claim that he reduced the deficit. From Virginia Cruta. CNN fact-checker Dan Dale made it clear Monday that he isn't buying President Biden's claim that he had reduced the deficit. Amid record-setting inflation and still rising gas prices, President Biden insisted last Wednesday that he had decreased the federal deficit. Let me remind you again, I reduced the federal deficit. Dale joined CNN New Day on Monday morning as he proceeded to pick apart the president's claim. Tom Elliott tweets out, almost bizarro world, must be a blue moon because CNN's fact-checker is calling Biden out for lying about his historic deficit reductions. Hashtag more of this, please.
Going on with the budget.
So here are the facts. There is no doubt that the deficit has fallen under President Biden so far. It was about $3.1 trillion under President Trump in fiscal 2020. It was about $360 billion lower than that, so about $2.8 trillion in fiscal 2021, mostly under President Biden. But even with that $360 billion decline, Brianna, experts I spoke to still scoffed at the idea that President Biden is personally responsible for having reduced the deficit. In fact, one advocate of deficit reduction, Mark Goldwine of the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget, told me that this claim is almost bizarro world, a reversal of reality. Why? Well, because the deficit was expected to fall by more than $360 billion at the time President Biden took office. In fact, at the time, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office had projected that the deficit would fall by more than $870 billion in 2021 if President Biden did not implement new policy. Then President Biden came in and, like most presidents, Brianna, did new policy. There's a $1.9 trillion pandemic relief bill. There was a big bipartisan infrastructure bill. There was an expansion of food stamp benefits. Whatever you think of all those policies, they all cost money. So there ended up being less deficit reduction than expected. Now, President Biden likes to cite a certain economic research firm called Moody's Analytics. Here's what a senior director at Moody's, Dan White, told me last week. He said, the actions of the administration and Congress have undoubtedly resulted in higher deficits, not smaller ones. It is encouraging that the administration has proposed some initiatives to bring down the deficit, but so far, none of those initiatives has been seriously considered. Now, Brianna, people might still be confused. If President Biden's actions have made the deficit higher than it otherwise would be, how has the deficit still fallen at all under President Biden from the end of the Trump era? In short, it's because of temporary pandemic spending. It was scheduled to expire, and it has expired. Basically, there was an explosion of short-term spending in Trump's last year because of pandemic relief programs, and tax revenue collapsed because the economy crashed. The deficit hit a record at $3.1 trillion. That was more than triple what it was the year prior. But because a lot of that 2020 spending was short-term, the deficit was almost certainly going to fall in the coming years, no matter who was president. And so, again, it did end up falling in 2021. But, again, it was by less than expected. So when President Biden talks about a projected...
So there's a big part of interest that goes along with this because it's almost impossible to believe that Biden has reduced the deficit, as Mr. Dale has told us. It's next to impossible to even consider that, considering spending has gone up and tax revenue, while the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, I believe, has not sunsetted yet, that'll be coming up in the near future. So we're still running on the lower taxes, and yet the spending has gone up. Now, as was pointed out, yes, there was an explosion in spending, but the deficit was coming down under President Trump. That's one of the and is pointed out, too, throughout this. One of the big problems with this is the fact that when we look at unemployment, when we look at job creation, when we look at deficit spending, when we look at the economy in general, our friends over on the left only like to look at what happened after February, let's say Valentine's Day of 2020, and use that as the marker of the entire Trump presidency. And it's really weird to actually see someone at CNN go back and look at what was happening before that, and also what's happening now after that, after we have no more mean tweets. So, thank you for that. And also from The Blaze, talking about what's happening with the speech coming up here. Get a quick refresh on this one, just because it doesn't look like the tweet loaded out of this. Biden's plan to attack Republicans in speech on inflation has already been debunked by the Washington Post. False claim. From Chris Enlow. A major talking point in a speech that President Biden will deliver on Tuesday has already been debunked by the Washington Post, no less. Biden is slated to deliver a major speech on Tuesday addressing the ongoing economic crisis in which inflation has spiraled out of control, and then he's going to turn his back on the press and walk out of the room. After repeatedly stressing that inflation is temporary, Biden will contrast his plan to address the economic crisis, which has seen record gas prices and skyrocketing inflation, with a plan offered by Republicans. He'll detail his plan to fight inflation and lower costs for working families, and contrast his approach with congressional Republicans' ultra-mega plan to raise taxes on 75 million American families and threaten to sunset programs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, a White House official said on Sunday, CNN reported. Biden's referring to a policy proposal that Rick Scott unveiled earlier this year. The 60-page, 11-point plan to rescue America offers more than 100 proposals. By the way, there's a PDF right here, 60 pages. I will link this article in the chat, and I will also link it in the Discord. If you guys are interested in reading it, I'm actually interested in reading it, now that I see it here. But yes, there is a PDF linked in this article if you guys want to see what Rick Scott's proposal is. Offers more than 100 proposals that would, as Biden claimed, raise taxes on millions of Americans, mostly on Americans who do not pay any income tax now, and it does propose to sunset all federal laws after 5 years. Scott believes that if a law was good enough to be passed once, it should be good enough to be passed again. The problem for Biden, however, is that Scott's plan is not the official policy of congressional Republicans, and very far from it, in fact. The Washington Post fact-checked Biden's claim last month, concluding that's not true, the Post explained. Scott's tax plan is certainly ripe for political fodder, but the White House is pushing its luck here. Scott is a Republican, and he's in Congress and part of the GOP leadership, but his snippet of an idea, such as it is, cannot be labeled a congressional Republican plan. No legislation has been crafted, and no other Republican lawmakers have announced their support. One cannot instantly assume every person in a political party supports a proposal by a prominent member. I don't know, from what the Blaze described off of this, and again, citing ignorance because I haven't read it, but what the Blaze has proposed off of this is what this what's actually in this. I would support this. I think that'd be a good idea. We will not have, as part of our agenda, a bill that raises taxes on half American people and sunsets Social Security and Medicare within 5 years, McConnell said in March. That will not be a part of the Republican Senate majority agenda. We will focus instead on what American people are concerned about: inflation, energy, defense, the border, and crime. Glenn Kessler, the Post reporter who wrote the fact check, reacted to a Biden forthcoming speech by observing the president will repeat a debunked false claim. So he is going to, and this is one of the things that I know both sides are trying to do. It's a little bit easier to do Republicans to do to Democrats because they do tend to kneel and bow to their most extreme members. But both sides do this, where they find a policy proposal by some of their more extreme members and say that represents the entire Democrat Party. Whether it be the vaccine mandate that was never officially policy in spite of the fact that everybody on Twitter was trying to get it passed, or whether it be this more extreme financial bill that was proposed by Rick Scott and has nobody else on board with it. And yeah, of course, McConnell's not going to try to end Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid because he's digging way too many campaign funds and kickbacks out of that. So, you've already been fact-checked by the Washington Post. Good job. Speaking of Ultra MAGA, the red-haired bobblehead in one of her last appearances on stage, you can do both. Bobblehead insists Biden can unify America while attacking the Ultra MAGA crowd. From Virginia Kruta. White House Press Secretary, red-haired bobblehead, insisted that President Biden could bring unity and bipartisanship. He promised on Inauguration Day, despite recent comments labeling the entire section of the Republican Party as the Ultra MAGA crowd. Bobblehead made comments during Monday's press briefing, responding to NPR's Tamara Keith, who asked how Biden's recent attacks aimed at the Ultra MAGA Republicans would jive with his promise to represent all Americans and support bipartisanship.
The president and you have talked about the MAGA crowd or the Ultra MAGA. How does that jive with his desire to be the bipartisan guy?
Well, the president's view is you can do both. He believes that there is work we can continue to do together. We're actively advocating for. He was out traveling in just last Friday on the Bipartisan Innovation Act. We believe that needs to move forward. It should move forward, and that can build on the nearly 80 bills that we signed into law last year that are bipartisan. But he's also not going to stand by and not call out what he sees as ultra MAGA behavior, ultra MAGA policies that are out of the mainstream of the country and are not in the interest of the American people. Whether that is efforts to prevent a woman from making choices about her own health care, or whether that is Chairman Scott's policy and proposals on that would raise taxes on people making less than $100,000 a year. He's going to continue to call that out, but he believes there's still a path to move forward on where we have agreement.
Yes, we're going to unify the country by othering people that we don't agree with and calling them Ultra MAGA. So, apparently you can do that. All right, let's keep going. Some more economic news for you here from KTLA, 75 years, LA's very own. CVS and Walgreens is limiting sale of baby formula amid shortage. But don't worry, our economy is going great. From Nuran Salahi, CVS and Walgreens are among the retailers limiting supply of baby formula amid an ongoing nationwide shortage. Citing challenges with supply, both chains are capping purchases to 3 baby formula products per transaction. Parents around the U.S. are hoping to buy baby formula are being met with empty shelves due to the shortage, which only got worse in February when a major baby food manufacturer, Abbott Nutrition, recalled powdered baby formula products manufactured at a Michigan plant. The recall, which affected Similac, Alimentum, and Elecare brands, was issued after 4 babies were hospitalized with bacterial infections, and 2 died after taking powdered baby formula, according to the U.S. FDA. The recall exacerbating an already existing baby formula supply issues caused by the pandemic, snarled supply chains, and shortage of ingredients. Now companies are limiting how much baby formula customers can buy at once. I hate to say this, I really do, but this seems awfully convenient to have a story like this coming out while Democrats have the talking point of evil Republicans are trying to put women in the poorhouse without giving them any sort of assistance, but forcing them to give birth. This seems awfully convenient of a story to come out right now for this. I don't know. I try not to tinfoil on this show when I can avoid it, but man, the timing. The absolute timing of something like this. Following supplier challenges and increased customer demand, we currently have a limit of 3 baby formula products per purchase in our stores and online, CVS spokeswoman Monica Prinzing said in a statement. We are continuing to work with our baby formula vendors to address the issue and we regret any inconvenience this causes our customers. Similarly, a Walgreens spokesperson pointed to the same supply issue, saying the chain is placing limits to help improve inventory. Due to increased demand and various supplier challenges, infant and toddler formulas are seeing constraint across the country similar to other retailers. We put into effect purchase limits of 3 per transaction on all infant and toddler formula to help improve inventory, Walgreens spokesperson Chris Lathan told KTLA. We continue to work diligently with our supplier partners to best meet customer demands. Target and Kroger have begun rationing online formula purchases in April, the Wall Street Journal reported. As of April 13th, 31% of formula products were out of stock across the country, according to retail software company Datassembly. In a statement issued last month, Abbott Nutrition representatives say they were aware that their recall caused additional stress and anxiety in an already challenging situation of global supply shortage. The company said it was producing more Similac advanced powder formula for U.S. babies at the plant in Ireland. Man, that sounds like something you could offset if you made that here. I'm just saying. And prioritizing formula production at its Ohio plant to help replenish the supply in the market. In the meantime, federal authorities are warning parents and caregivers against diluting infant formula or giving homemade infant formula to infants. So, we'll talk a bit about this line in just a second, but man, oh man, after last week, because the supply chain has been limited off of this, and this has been kind of a back burner thing for a little while. It's not made major news, but I seem to remember before the crash in 2008, one of the things that was leading up to that was as well, because I worked at a grocery store before I went out to Massachusetts, was that we were also limiting purchases at the time of baby formula to, I think it was 2 per customer per transaction. And it all had to be stored behind the courtesy counter because it was limited to 2 per customer per transaction. I think it is still, I mean, even before this, I should say. Obviously it is now, but before this, it was also behind the courtesy counter because it was 2 per transaction per customer, but also because it's apparently really expensive. I don't know. I don't have kids. I've never dealt with this. Also, I don't really want to know what's going on over here in the ad bar with the anime girls. That seems kind of weird to come from a major Los Angeles news outlet, but it is what it is. But that's the thing, is, I mean, this is something we've been seeing for a while, and then all of a sudden now, this is coming up as a major news story right after we have the big Roe versus Wade argument. Again, not really trying to be tinfoily, but I have questions. I really do. From CNN. The baby formula supply problem is getting worse. From Parija? Yeah, let's go with Parija. Parija Kabilans and Ramesha Maroof. I would be really surprised to see a shelf like that in the real world. Again, noting the fact that the last time I worked at a grocery store, all that shit was hid behind the courtesy counter. For months, stores nationwide have been struggling to stock enough baby formula. Manufacturers say they're producing at full capacity and making as much formula as they can, but it's still not enough to meet current demand. The out-of-stock rate for baby formula hovered between 2% and 8% in the first half of 2021, but began rising sharply last July. Between November and early April of 2022, out-of-stock rate jumped to 31% from date assembly. So, this has been going on since November of 2021 to April 2022. That's the data set that we've had going on there, and apparently still going on into May of 2022. And again, this is the first we're hearing it from major news outlets. The week after the Roe versus Wade argument came up to bid. I have questions! Although you guys know that I question everything. That rate increased another 9 points in just 3 weeks in April and now stands at 40%. The statistics show in 6 states, Iowa, South Dakota, North Dakota, Missouri, Texas, and Tennessee, more than half of baby formula was completely sold out during the week starting April 24th. Data Assembly said. There might be some panic buying though too. Do keep that in mind. Given the fact that we've been having this problem since November 2021, people are shopping around to every store to say, hey, I need more of this, I need more of this, this might run out. And although 7 states had between 40 and 50% of the baby formula products out of stock as of early April, 26 are now struggling with supply. The issue has been compounded by supply chain issues, product recalls, and historic inflation, Data Assembly CEO Ben Reich said. Unfortunately, given the unprecedented amount of volatility in the category, we anticipate baby formula to continue to be one of the most affected products in the market. CVS and Walgreens confirmed that it's limiting customers nationwide to 3 toddler and infant formulas per transaction. We continue to work diligently with our supplier partners to best meet customer demands, Walgreens said in a statement to CNN Business. A Target spokesperson confirmed that the retailer has limited baby formula purchases to 4 units per customer for online purchases. There is no limit on the number of units that can be bought in person in Target stores, the company said. Customers shared images on social media of Walmart imposing similar constraints on its sales of baby formula. Though Walmart did not confirm it was a nationwide policy, images shared on CNN Business show empty shelves where baby formula should be and a sign saying only 5 units were allowed per customer. So, again, it's the timing. It's the economy, and this is going to be one of the things, by the way. When we continue to have clogged up supply chain issues, that is going to hurt Democrats in the midterms. Because if you can't feed your babies, there are going to be some very, very desperate parents that are willing to do things that they would normally never do. And on the left, that may go along to voting Republican. Because I think some of them are going to look at this and say, we never had this problem under Trump. We had this problem under Bush, and we had this problem under Obama, but we never had this problem under Trump. So, that's what we see off of that. Of course, the warning coming from the federal government. From ABC7, amid baby formula shortages, experts are warning against DIY options. Well, I mean, there's one DIY option that never goes out of style. From Sophie Flay, don't DIY your baby formula. That's the message doctors are sending parents amid the formula shortage. Dr. Rishma Chand of Dignity Health Northridge Hospital says many parents are scrambling to make their own formula with what they have or are turning to sites like eBay to buy formula. Dr. Chand says parents should not dilute formula even if their supply is low. If you're not mixing your child formula properly, it can lead to serious consequences such as being hospitalized, having a seizure, or even death, Chand said. Chand said parents should be brand flexible right now. You can try a different formula, just make sure your child is tolerating it, Chand said. This shortage is a combination of recalls, supply chain issue, and inflation. On Monday, the White House Press Secretary Red Hair Bobblehead said the FDA is working around the clock to optimize supply lines and meet the current demand. Well, again, I understand that it does not work in every instance, because there are medical complications. Sometimes you just can't do that. But a lot of times when you go and have your bottle baby, it is a matter of convenience. So I do remind parents, and again, don't have kids, don't know the full practicality of this, but I can say that, you know, there's one place that the supply chain is under most normal circumstances, not all circumstances, but most normal circumstances, not interrupted. Biologically, it's the way that we've fed our children for almost every generation of humanity. From CNN, more coronavirus. Coronavirus wave this fall and winter could potentially infect 100 million, the White House warns, from Caitlin Collins. The Biden admin is issuing a new warning that the U.S. could potentially see 100 million COVID cases this fall and winter. This fall, you say? This fall? Would that be... Let me think about that for a sec. Would that be around September to October of an election year? You don't say. We could possibly have a new wave of coronavirus right around this time of September, October. What, by the way, might be happening in November of this year? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the very beginning part of November. It's a mystery. The projection of about 100 million potential infections is an estimate based on a range of outside models that are being closely tracked by the admin and would include both the fall and winter, a senior admin official told CNN. Officials say this estimate is based on an underlying assumption of no additional resources or extra mitigation measures being taken, including new pinko-pox funding from Congress or dramatic new variants. The White House is sharing these estimates as officials renew their push to get Congress to approve additional funding to combat the virus. Meanwhile, talking about how they're trying to stop inflation. Look for logic in this particular administration. And as the nation approaches a coronavirus death toll of 1 million, officials have said the White House will commemorate the moment when the U.S. surpasses 1 million deaths from COVID-19. Citation needed, please. The Biden admin has been sounding the alarm for weeks that additional funding is needed to continue the federal pinko-pox response, even as it seeks to return to normal with many pandemic-era restrictions lifting. The 100 million estimate was the first reported by the Washington Post. CNN has reported that the Biden is requesting $22.5 billion in supplemental pinko-pox relief funding in March in a massive government funding package, but it was stripped from the bill. That request included funding for testing, treatments, therapeutics, and preventing future outbreaks, which means money going back into the pockets of Pfizer and Moderna and BioNTech and Johnson & Johnson to a lesser extent. Negotiators were able to reach an agreement on a scaled-back $10 billion package, but Congress left Washington in April without passing the bipartisan bill amid agreements over the Title 42 immigration policy, a pandemic-era rule that allowed migrants to be returned immediately to their home countries, citing a public health emergency. And this is the thing, because there's so much inconsistency with what we see coming out of the White House. They want to end Title 42 because they say the pandemic is over, but they want additional funding for the pandemic. And now they say that come fall, right before election time, there's going to be an additional 100 million cases. But they still want to end Title 42. It's all bullshit, and it's all another attempt to go and push down an authoritarian agenda. But it's already happening, according to our mainstream overlords from NBC4 New York. COVID positivity tops 20% in hot New York City neighborhood as fifth wave intensifies. Fifth fucking wave this. Pinko pox positivity rates in parts of New York City are back over 20% as the fifth wave of the pandemic spreads throughout the state, driven by a highly contagious new subvariant. The rolling 7-day positivity rate in Long Island now stands at 21.3%, according to the latest data posted by the city. Large swaths of Queens near or top 15%, along with Manhattan neighborhoods like the Financial District and Lincoln Square. Citywide, the transmission rates have risen to levels last seen in late January, almost 20% up in a week and almost 90% in a month. Oh my god, it's Ermiger too! The city has already raised its alert level to medium last week, and on Thursday, Health Commissioner Dr. Ashwin Vasan told CNN that all options could be on the table, including the return of a mask mandate, if things continue to get worse. Aren't you glad you went out and got jabbed and vaccinated? There's a poll. How concerned are you about contracting the Pinko pox infection right now? I'm not. If I get it, I get it. But as even more get infected, fewer people are ending up in the hospital. Hospitalization rates in the city have dropped in recent days and are now back to where they were in early April. And again, one of the things with this, and this is the thing with the Pinko pox and the current obsession with it, the fact that we're seeing the vice president, the red-haired bobblehead, all get it again. Now, we've been informed from the beginning that there are false positives with the Pinko pox, with the PCR test. Statistically, that's going to be a possibility no matter what. Manufactured products fail. But we're seeing some of these people get this 2, 3, 4 times, and they're usually the vaccinated. That's what people say. It's the vaccine that's causing it. It's causing them to get it again and again and again and again. But realistically, the same people who are fully vaccinated are the people who are likely to go and obsessively get tested 5 and 6 times a week. That is a lot of testing. That is a lot of PCR strips. And if you're doing this, what are they doing? Like 2 or 3 times a week, I think they have to do in some cases. Especially when it comes up to the White House. When you start throwing that many tests, if you have a 1% false positivity rate, and you are doing 100 tests, if you're doing 2 tests a week with a 1% false positivity rate, and that's, I think, being generous, that's 102 tests that you took that year. Statistically, at least one of them is going to be a false positive. Statistically. And then you'll be asymptomatic, but then you won't have to go to Europe and face the music over your administration's shitty policies. Oops, did I say that out loud? But then we also have the people on Twitter that say, well, I'm unvaccinated and I never got it. No, you never tested for it. And I would be willing to bet that if it was only the fact that people were going and getting tested when they had the symptoms, you would have a positivity rate that was far, far lower and a caseload that's far lower. And honestly, probably a death rate that's far, far lower too. Arvold? I see you. Alright, let's talk about this story that has now drawn itself to possibly a close, but just because of time constraints, because the abortion argument took up so much of our time throughout the last week. From CNN, Alabama corrections officer who escaped with inmate has died in the hospital, sheriff says. From Jay Croft, Teresa Waldrop, Christina Maxoris, and Elizabeth Wolf. Former Alabama corrections officer Vicky White has died from injuries after she and escaped inmate Casey White were arrested in Indiana earlier Monday, Sheriff Dave Wedding of Vanderburgh County told CNN. She was hospitalized earlier with self-inflicted gunshot wounds after being taken into custody following a car chase in Evansville, Indiana. U.S. Marshals previously told CNN her wounds were very serious, Wedding said at the time. No law enforcement officers fired shots, according to Sheriff Rick Singleton of Lauderdale County, Alabama, where the pair, who were not related, fled on April 29th. Yeah, it was interesting that they both had the same last name, but not related. Before the chase ensued, officers conducting surveillance spotted Vicky White exiting a hotel with a wig on, according to U.S. Marshal Matt Keeley. Then she and Casey White got into a car and drove away. Authorities continued to watch the pair until vehicle pursuit began, ending when a U.S. Marshals task force member drove a vehicle into the Cadillac Vicky White was driving. The car wrecked and rolled over, he said. Officers were able to remove the inmate from the wrecked car, but Vicky White was pinned inside with a gunshot wound to her head, Keeley said. Casey White reportedly told officers, "Yo, help my wife! She shot herself in the head and I didn't do it," according to Keeley. Keeley said, to their knowledge, Casey White and Vicky White are not married. The pair's capture brings to a close an 11-day manhunt, which gained widespread national attention and saw hundreds of tips flood in from all corners of the country, including one that ultimately led to the location and arrest of the fugitives. That tip came in Sunday night, Singleton said. Wedding said the duo were believed to be seen in Evansville since May 3rd. It's hard to believe they've been here that many days, but we're lucky that we stumbled upon them today, he said. Singleton said the Whites, who are not related but believed to be in a romantic relationship, will be brought back to Alabama. Casey White faces previous murder charges. Vicky White, 56, was the first charged with permitting or facilitating an escape in the first degree and now also faces forgery and identity theft charges. He will be in a cell by himself, Singleton said, and he will stay in handcuffs and shackles while he's in that cell, and if he wants to sue me for violating civil rights, so be it. He's not getting out of jail again, I'll assure you of that. Singleton said, "I've always expected this outcome. I knew we would catch them. It was just a matter of time." Most escapees from county jail are spontaneous, he said. This escape was probably well planned and calculated, Singleton said. A lot of preparation went into this. They had plenty of resources, had cash, had vehicles, and everything that they needed to pull this off. And that's what made last week and a half so challenging. We were starting from ground zero, and not only that, they got a 6-hour head start on us. So, of course, this all started based on the fact that it looked like, I believe, Vicky White was transporting the prisoner from one facility to another and managed to escape detection and run away. It does not look like this was a hostage situation. It does look like they were doing this in conjunction with each other. There may have been a romantic relationship, or it may have been that he was feeding her a romantic relationship to make her feel good about herself because she was almost 20 years older than he was. But the manhunt is over. They have been found. They are both in custody. She didn't pass, did she? She has died in the hospital at this point. I know they mentioned that she was going to face charges, but it's really hard to face charges when you're deceased. From WGN, Vicky White dies. Let's actually skip this one because this appears to be the same story over and over again. Does not look like there is going to be any new developments coming out of this one. Although we can hear the press conference. Maybe we can hear the press conference. It is a Chicago news outlet, so it might not work the way it's supposed to work.
Being here, before we get started, I wanted to introduce...
No, it's a 15-minute press conference. We're not going to do that one. More criminal news. A woman wanted in double slaying is found dead in the woods. From the Associated Press. No author given. A woman suspected of killing her boyfriend and brother over the weekend was found dead Monday in a wooded area in southeastern Michigan, authorities said. Ruby Taverner, 22, shot herself, the Oakland County Sheriff's Office said. Investigators were seeking Taverner for the fatal shooting of Ray Muscat, 26, and Bishop Taverner, 22, in an apartment building in Independence Township. Our investigators will now pivot and see if we can answer the questions on everyone's mind. Why? Sheriff Bouchard said. And that is all the information the Associated Press will give us. Unfortunately, I actually should have pulled up the other article for this one. This is the one I should have taken the review of. At least 2 people in this particular situation were transgendered. So it appears that there's some rapid onset gender dysphoria going on here, but of course, I mean, YouTube will tell us that that doesn't actually exist. But I believe it is both Taverner and the brother, Bishop Taverner, were both transgendered, and then they were also, one of them was dating this Ray Muscat person. I don't know. But she killed both of them, and then shot his/herself out in the woods. And I'm very confused. And apparently so is everybody else in this situation. Our very own ultra-centrist, Arvolt24, says the fucking English language is being tortured to maintain a fiction. A mom can't father a child. It's simple science. From the Daily Mail, following up on that. Transgender mom is jailed for 25 years for heinous, cruel, and depraved crime of forcing daughter 7 she fathered to take part in child porn. 3 accomplices are also sentenced as a prosecutor brands foursome a quartet of darkness. From David Avery. A trans mother who forced the 7-year-old daughter she fathered to engage in child porn at their New Jersey home has been jailed for 25 years without parole, along with 3 accomplices. Which prison is she going to? Marina Voles, previously named Matthew, was sentenced Friday at a Somerset County Superior Court, alongside another transgender woman, Ashley Romero, 28, previously named Adam, and 2 other offenders, Sean Allen and Dulcinea Neko. Voles, 32, ran a family-owned transgender pornography production studio, specializing in amateur, BDSM, and taboo fetish content from her Coburn Lane home in Franklin Township, according to acting persecutor Anne-Marie Taggart, where she allowed her accomplices to sexually abuse her young daughter. Hang on, I might have a sounder for this. The involvement of all 4 defendants was made clear in a string of group messages in which they discussed their plans to abuse Voles' child. Somerset County Assistant Prosecutor Brian Stack told Judge Peter Tober at sentencing on Friday that the quartet orchestrated a vortex of darkness that snuffed out the young girl, adding the group were incapable of redemption and not accepted full responsibility. Judge Tober, meanwhile, said the crime was heinous, cruel, and depraved, and commented the child endured abuse involving basement cage, neck collars, and a variety of sex toys. The judge sentenced Bowles and Romero to 25 years without parole, while Allen received a 12-year sentence eligible for parole after 10 years, and Necco was handed a 5-year sentence. Bowles, Romero, and Allen will all be subject to lifetime parole supervision upon release. I have a better idea of what to do with them. From the Daily Wire, chest binders and packaging underwear featured in Target's new Pride Month collection. From Amanda Harding. Target will be selling breast binders and packing underwear as part of its latest clothing collection just ahead of Pride Month in June. The retailer is known for celebrating June in a splashy, rainbow-colored way. It has been criticized for offering Pride collection for kids, specifically babies, for years. Now the company is catering to the trans community by promoting specialty garments specifically made for them. According to Bustle, Target partnered with Tomboy X and Humankind for the collection, which are both queer-owned and female-founded brands. Merch will include the expected rainbow-colored messaging that's become commonplace for these collections. It will also have some new items that a mainstream retailer like Target hasn't sold before. The Tomboy X collection includes undergarments such as chest binders, packing underwear, bras and boy shirts sizes S to 4X. Humankind's line is focused on swimsuit styles, including swim trunks, tops, and unisuits. Bustle reported, as binders and gender-affirming swimsuits are notoriously difficult to find, particularly in extended sizes, this accessible drop will make shopping for everyday garments much easier. Man, why do they have to do this now? I have a gift card for Target sitting right over there on my bookshelf. I know I don't want to use it, because they do shit like this. And since when is a chest binder an everyday garment? Mila Miles, a black, queer, non-binary writer and stand-up comedian, was a model for the collection along with partner Yasmin Almo. Miles discussed being happy with the experience of modeling for a mainstream store like Target. It was the first time I was welcomed and empowered to make other people feel empowered, Miles said. On set, no one was a prop. We were all there for opportunity to feel seen and for someone else to feel seen. The model hopes the campaign will redefine commercial beauty by hiring different-looking commercial models. Man, you remember when the retail stores had Kathy Ireland and I realized how much I liked girls with dark hair and light-colored eyes? No, that last part only I remember. Kids at the Target Pride collection include toddlers, tees that proclaim trans rights are human rights, and shirts emblazoned with pronouns, plus the expected rainbow-colored merchandise in all forms, including onesies and matching sets for the whole family. See, they came out and said that this was only to be targeted with adults, but then they go on and talk about onesies and matching sets for the whole family. Hold on, I hear something. Toddler books in the collection include Bye Bye Binary and the Pronoun book. In the adult collection, the poem that includes the line For the Queer Lovers and Everyone in Between, For the Rebels That Fight to Forever Be Seen is featured on tote bags, shirts, and beach towels. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't really care what you do with your life as an adult. If you want to cut your tits off, or cut your cock off, or have silicone balls installed in an artificial sack, that's your business. But dude, leave the kids out of it. That's my big thing, is leave the damn kids out of it. But thank you, Target, for that disturbing image. From The Blaze. Keith Olbermann got into it again. Keith Olbermann attacks homeschooling mom on Mother's Day. Imagine putting homeschool mom in your bio and not understanding you just ruined the lives of 5 innocent children. And the weird part is I'm not mocking him by saying that he actually, well, I am mocking him, but that he actually talks like that. From Alex Nitzberg. In a tweet on Mother's Day, Keith Olbermann took a dig at a woman who homeschools her children. Imagine putting homeschool mom in your bio and not understanding you just ruined the lives of 5 innocent children, Olbermann wrote in response to a tweet from Bethany S. Mandel, who is married to Washington Examiner magazine executive director Seth Mandel. What an empty life this man lives, Bethany Mandel tweeted in response to Olbermann's saucy remark. In another tweet, she jokingly wrote, "My poor homeschooled kids," when retweeting a post that included photos of children at the National Gallery of Art. If my kids went to public school where I live, they would be at a severe academic disadvantage. They would have spent over a year on Zoom and then tried to learn how to read with their teachers' mouths covered as they learn letter sounds, Mandel told Fox News. Instead, they go to museums and have one-on-one instruction with the most caring and loving teacher possible, their mom. My kids are extraordinarily lucky to be homeschooled. Blaze Media's Jessica O'Donnell replied to Olbermann's impertinent post by tweeting, "Imagine being known for creating psychotically angry videos on the internet." Yeah, that's actually pretty true. Keith, I agree with you on politics, but this is a low-blow attack. There's nothing wrong with homeschooling. We can do better, David Weissman tweeted in response to Olbermann's comments. I try to operate under the assumption that people I strenuously disagree with are usually operating in something like good faith, but Olbermann is a good reminder that some people just suck, Drew Holden tweeted. He went on with this one, with Mitt Romney saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace and goodwill toward men. From my family to yours, Merry Christmas." This was from the Christmas side, and the big Mormon Utah family that Romney has because, well, it's his religion, it's what he wants to do. And Olbermann says, "Somebody please gift these people vasectomies." Yeah, Olbermann just sucks. He really does. And I'm going to be completely honest with where I have been on homeschooling, because it was when I was younger. That was just where the weird and religious kids went. There was no, you didn't get the education on homeschool when I was a kid like you did in a regular school, because at the time, there weren't the resources for that. The internet was just budding. People could put whatever they want on the website. Well, they can still do that, but there's at least ways to come back out and fact check that. And there were really no resources other than, if you were homeschooled, you read Robinson Crusoe and the Bible, and that was it. Where we have come in the last 20 years, extended, but especially in the last 2 years for homeschool, I can't believe not everybody is doing that at this point. I can't believe we're at a point right now where it's not almost universal to go back and homeschool. I mean, Zoom school was almost universal. I can't believe that we're not at a point where this is just what's happening all the time. Because there's a resource. Even the most lay parent out there can, for pretty much free, in most cases, not even with taxpayer subsidies, but actually for literally free in most cases, get a plethora and myriad of textbooks in whatever subject they want, educate themselves on it, and then educate their kids from it. There are lesson plans out there. There are people who have done this. There's experience out there. There's resource sharing out there for this. This is a viable option, like it wasn't in the 90s. when we looked at this and made the assumption that, oh, the homeschool kids, those are just the weird kids. And couple that with the fact that we keep seeing this grooming behavior coming out of the public school, it might be time to go back and consider it. Get your kids out of these schools. If you're not comfortable doing it yourself, there are private options right there, which are also becoming more resource friendly, with school choice becoming a real thing. Dude, the public school option is dead. I hate to tell you this, the public school model is a dying model. Because it got infected with the kind of people who wanted to go and be activists and teach kids to be activists. And our students have been falling behind the rest of the world since I was in school. The education level was not there compared to what it was in the rest of the world in the 90s when I was going through it. And now so much activism has taken over in the rest of it that yes, it's time. It's a dying model. It's time to let it go. And if you really have to have taxpayers involved in it, prescribe a Department of Education that parents should still have to work from, and then use your taxpayer funds to go out and provide the resources for the parents to go and homeschool from there. Think of all the money you save on buildings and all the money you can go pump into education when you don't have those mortgages and that shit out there. And you don't have to pay the salaries for activists. All right. A little bit of news from our friends who play Wordle, or for our friends who play Wordle. I think we are going to have to cut it here just a bit. Yeah, we're not going to get to this Marco Rubio article. Marco Rubio wrote an op-ed for the Daily Wire, and I thought it was interesting, so I wanted to share a little bit of that with you, but we'll have to do that tomorrow for sure. And I do think that this will be the last one. So for our friends who do Wordle, and then we will do Twitter trending and head out of here for the day. Wordle answers changed to avoid fraught word, New York Times says. From David Bowder. The New York Times, a former newspaper, moved swiftly to change Monday's answer to its daily Wordle puzzle out of fear that it might be seen as some sort of commentary on the debate over abortion rights. The game, which became a sensation late last year and was bought by the New York Times in January, gives users 6 tries to guess a different 5-letter word each day. No clues or anything on that, it's a different 5-letter word. Yet the Times scrambled when it discovered that Monday's word, which had been entered into the world's computer last year, was fetus. The timing was particularly fraught given last week's leaked report of a draft U.S. Supreme Court decision that would strike down a 50-year-old ruling governing the ability of women to receive abortions. The appearance of fetus was entirely unintentional and coincidence, said newspaper in a message to readers on Monday. At the New York Times Games, we take our role seriously as a place to entertain and escape, and we want Wordle to remain distinct from the news, the message said. The Times changed Monday's answer to a different word, and spokesman said the vast majority of users saw that, but some people who had not refreshed their browsers saw fetus instead, spokesman Jordan Cohen said. He would not say whether the Times had received any complaints about fetus. Wordle was invented by Josh Wardle, a Brooklyn software engineer, as a gift for his partner, and it took off when he began posting it online. Players guess the words and hone in on the correct answer as the game tells them if their guesses contain letters in the word of the day. Well, New York Times had to scramble. They think that they didn't make a political statement by doing this, but they really did. I want to be honest. I thought about this when I first saw this. I'm like, yeah, they're doing this to try to avoid a political statement, but, I mean, we've all seen how much removing a fetus has become the new fashion accessory of the day over the last week. So, of course, the New York Times is going to jump on the bandwagon and go and remove a fetus. Nothing? Nothing for that one? I need a laugh track. Alright, let's do Twitter trending and head out of here for the day. Bobby Reich is out here. It's worth pointing out once again the stock market is not the economy. That was from 14 hours ago, or 16 hours ago at this point, when the stock market was shedding all kinds of cash. All kinds of points. So let's get the Explorer page up here and let's go and see what's trending for the day. Alright, over on the trending tab. Number 1 trend today, Tom Brady. Tom Brady has agreed to join Fox Sports as its lead NFL analyst whenever he stops playing, Lachlan Murdoch announced. Oh, that's going to go over well. Evil Republican Tom Brady was a Trump supporter. Yeah, I forgot about this Tom Brady play. If Mahomes did this, ESPN would play the highlight every hour. That's pretty good, actually. What an absolute coup for Fox Sports and Eric Shanks to get Tom Brady and keep it quiet so that Lachlan Murdoch could announce it on the Fox earnings call. Just wow, took the criticism over losing Aikman and Buck and just dunked it on everyone here. So this is going to be a meltdown later on today. So Tom Brady won't become a Miami Dolphins minority owner like every media outlet has reported for last year. Got it. He might still do that. He's got a bunch of money. So that's what we see coming off of that. We skip Tuesday Vibe. The next one, Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights. PS4 and Xbox One's versions canceled. Oh, really? Watch Nightwing and Red Hood from this Gotham Knights gameplay demo. They don't always see eye to eye, but Nightwing and Red Hood can agree on one thing: protect Gotham at all costs. So apparently we have Gotham Knights was canceled, but it can only support 2 online players at a time. So it looks like it's probably fraught with errors, so that could possibly be what's going on with this. But I don't know. I don't really have a console that can run this. I don't even know if my PC could. Look at those graphics. But they're releasing some of their gameplay, but also saying that it's not going to be on every platform either. So is this? I don't know if this is going to be a PC only thing. This is going to be a... What did they say it was going to be canceled for? PS4 and Xbox One. So yeah, probably Nintendo and PC, it looks like. The third one, Silksong. Se viene Silksong. If I see any of y'all spamming "Where's Silksong" in the chat tomorrow, I'll personally come to your house and beg, please stop it. Please, you're making the HK fandom look annoying and desperate. Please stop. Hollow Knights fans, whenever a new indie world is announced, they are dressed up in preparation for their therapist appointment right after. And in case you missed it, here's the latest news from Team Cherry on Silksong. This is from Unity Awards in 2021. Post made April 27th. Basically, they're still working on it, but it can't be much longer, surely. So this is going to be a sequel, I believe, to Hollow Knight, but I don't think they're ready for it yet. According to this, at least. Silksong bros, get your copium ready. With the Hollow Knight, with a clown wig. I like that. That's good. The fourth one. People you should never make angry. People you should never make angry. Me, when I'm making salsa. Your taste buds aren't that strong. People you should never make angry. Will Smith. Not necessarily people you should never make angry, but rather pets. You may be overcome by cuteness. Let me see your war face. People you should never make angry. Any group of cats who have formed their own organization. Spider-Man. People you should never make angry. Returns home after what I assume was a fight with Spider-Man. Rideshare emotional support animals. People you should never make angry. I honked at the car in front of me, and this angry alpaca popped out, and now I'm not sure what to do. Why is there an alpaca in the car? And how did you fit it? They're pretty big creatures, I thought. And the last one. People you should never make angry. The dentist, when his or her drill is in your mouth. Yeah, that's probably the best way to do that as well. Kind of like that woman who got away with it for saying, oh, well, guess who got double stuck for the blood draw? Oh, he laughed at my pronoun pins, and oh, I just happened to miss his vein for the blood draw and had to get him again. Alright, and the last one, because we had to do Wordle. People attempt to guess the 4 5-letter words at once in Quirtle, which is a take on the viral brain He's a Wordle. So this is Daily Quirtle 106. 325, 4 of 6, 7, 8, 6, and X. 5, 7, 6, 9 for the Daily Quirtle there, 106. Bust, 8, 4, and bust. Better luck next time, hopefully. Pure luck. 4, 9, 7, and 8. 3, 5, 4, 7. 5, 6, 4, 8. So people are doing pretty well off this, but I can probably better bet that one of these words is not fetus. I would be willing to bet that's a safe assumption. Alright, it's 9:35. We gotta head out of here. It's been fun. I like doing, especially since Wordle is almost always inevitably at the top. I kind of do enjoy doing the Wordle side of this, but yeah, it's fun. Let's head out of here. You can almost tell that I have one of the studio lights off because the sun is shining in the window. And it's going to be almost 90 degrees today. While I'm working outside in the humidity. Send help, please. I'm a winter creature. You'll notice I never complain when it gets cold. Alright, let's finish this up. Where's my outro music? There it is. So, thanks everybody who came by, chatted in the live chat. It was a slow day today, but we'll pick that back up. We want to see if we can get to 20 people chatting in the live chat this week. Do remember there is no Daily Ignoramus today. Do say a prayer for our friend Stephen, as he is going through one of his hardest trials in life. So definitely keep him with your thoughts and prayers throughout the day, and we will probably get an update today. There's also no Daily Ignoramus tomorrow either, so we'll try to pick up the slack on what's going on with that, and I'll try to stoke your racist and homophobic fears throughout the day, because I do try to pick up some of the slack when he's out of here too. Otherwise, come back and join us tomorrow, even if we don't pick up those things, for more contemporary, as we talk about what's happening on the news throughout the day and pick up some of these last ones that we're doing here, including the fact that our very own Kathy Barnett, product of rape, who is grateful for the fact that she's pulling ahead in the Pennsylvania primaries ahead of Dr. Oz. I think that's going to be a great thing for her. We will see what happens with that, and we will go with that. We will see you here next time, tomorrow, for more contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.